Warriors, a moment is now. Follow me to victory!
The Princess Commander looked at him carefully, feeling that this was the man who had saved her past. The Galactic Command Station hung in orbit like a silver crown above the scarred planet below. Inside the main conference hall, Princess Commander Serial of the Aetherin Empire stood before the massive viewing window, watching supply ships drift through the darkness. Her purple skin gleamed under the artificial lights, and her ceremonial armor bore the marks of dozens of battles. Today was supposed to be simple. Negotiate with the humans, establish supply routes, sign documents. Nothing more, but something felt wrong. "Commander, the human delegation has arrived," her aide announced, his voice pulling her from her thoughts. Serial turned and walked to the negotiation table. Her boots clicked against the metal floor with military precision. She had fought in 3 wars, commanded fleets of warships, and earned her position through blood and strategy. Yet somehow, standing here waiting for these humans made her heart beat faster. The doors opened. 5 humans entered the room. They wore simple gray uniforms without the excessive medals and ribbons that most species favored. Serial's eyes moved across them, analyzing each person as she had been trained to do. The leader was Ambassador Patricia Wong, a woman with short black hair and confident eyes. Behind her walked 2 security officers, standing tall and alert. A young female diplomat carried a data tablet, and then there was him. The 5th human was different. He moved quietly, almost invisibly, staying slightly behind the others. His uniform bore the insignia of a tactical advisor. His hair was dark, with traces of gray at the temples, and a thin scar ran across his left hand. He looked ordinary, forgettable even. But Serial could not look away. "Princess Commander Serial," Ambassador Wong said, bowing slightly. "It is an honor to meet you. I am Ambassador Wong, and this is my team." Serial forced herself to focus. "Ambassador, welcome to Galactic Command. Please, sit." They took their positions around the long table. Serial sat at the head, her advisors on either side. The humans sat across from them. The quiet one, the tactical advisor, sat at the end, his hands folded calmly on the table. "Shall we begin with the trade routes?" Ambassador Wong suggested, activating a holographic map above the table. Serial nodded, but her attention kept drifting. She watched the tactical advisor from the corner of her eye. The way he tilted his head when studying the map, the way his fingers tapped a slow rhythm on the table, the small, unconscious movements that seemed somehow familiar. "Princess Commander?" Wong's voice broke through her distraction. "Do you agree with the proposed route through Sector 7? Yes, that seems acceptable," Serial said quickly, annoyed at herself for losing focus. The tactical advisor spoke for the first time. "Actually, if I may suggest, Ambassador." His voice was calm, measured. He leaned forward and adjusted the holographic map with quick, precise gestures. "Sector 7 has increased pirate activity in recent months. If we shift the route here, through Sector 9, we add only 2 days to the journey, but reduce ambush points by 70%. Paul held an absolutely distant. The way he analyzed the battlefield, the trade route, was not like other strategists she had known. Most species thought in terms of direct paths and overwhelming force. This human thought differently. He saw patterns, anticipated problems, found safer paths rather than stronger weapons. "Your name, advisor?" Serial asked suddenly. He looked up, meeting her eyes for the first time. His eyes were brown, warm, but guarded. "Captain Marcus Chen, Princess Commander." Something electric ran through Serial's mind. Not his name, not his face, but something about him pulled at memories she could not quite reach. Memories from long ago, from a time when she had been small and afraid. "Captain Chen's suggestion is sound," Serial said, forcing herself to continue the meeting. "We will use Sector 9. The negotiations continued for another hour. They discussed supplies, military cooperation, and communication protocols. Throughout it all, Serial found herself watching Marcus Chen. He rarely spoke, but when he did, his words were careful and intelligent. He noticed details others missed, and then she saw it. When Marcus reached across the table to adjust a data screen, his sleeve pulled back slightly. There, on a chain around his neck, was a small medallion. It was simple, made of copper-colored metal, with an unusual design etched into its surface. Serial's breath caught in her throat. She knew that design. She had created it herself when she was 7 years old, scratching it into a piece of metal with a child's clumsy hands. She had given it to someone important. But the memories were foggy, broken by trauma and time. Before she could study it further, alarms exploded throughout the station. Red lights flashed. A mechanical voice announced, "Security breach, Sector 4. All personnel to emergency stations." Everyone jumped to their feet. Ambassador Wong grabbed her communicator. "What's happening?" "Terrorist attack," one of Serial's aides reported, reading incoming data. "Explosives detected near the fuel depot. Evacuating civilians now." "We need to reach the secure bunker," Serial commanded, her training taking over. "Follow me." They ran through the corridors as more alarms blared. Other personnel rushed past them, some heading toward the danger, others fleeing from it. Smoke began filtering through the ventilation systems. An explosion rocked the station. The floor tilted, and Serial stumbled. A strong hand caught her arm, steadying her. "Marcus Chen." "This way," he said, pulling her toward a side corridor. "The main routes will be compromised. We need to use the maintenance passages." "How do you know?" Serial started to ask, but another explosion cut her off. They ran together, Marcus leading with the confidence of someone who had studied the station's layout thoroughly. He moved like a soldier, like someone who had been in dangerous situations before and survived. Just like someone had moved 20 years ago, protecting a frightened child through hostile territory. They reached a safe room and sealed the door behind them. Ambassador Wong and the others arrived moments later through a different entrance. "Everyone accounted for," Wong confirmed, breathing heavily. Serial leaned against the wall, trying to calm her racing heart. She looked at Marcus Chen, who was already checking the room's security systems with practiced efficiency, and in that moment, watching him work, another memory surfaced. Strong hands lifting her from wreckage, a calm voice telling her everything would be okay, the smell of smoke and fear, and one human who refused to leave her behind. "Captain Chen," Serial said quietly. He turned to her. "Have we met before?" For just a second, something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, fear, sadness. "I don't believe so, Princess Commander," he said carefully. But Serial knew he was lying. The safe room was silent, except for the distant sound of emergency sirens. Serial sat at a corner table, pretending to review security reports on her data tablet. In reality, she was watching Marcus Chen. He stood near the door, checking the lock mechanisms for the third time. His movements were efficient, professional, but there was something else. A protective instinct in the way he positioned himself between the door and everyone else in the room. Ambassador Wong was speaking with station security through her communicator, coordinating the response to the attack. The other humans sat quietly, waiting for the all-clear signal. Serial's mind raced. That medallion, those movements, the way he had known exactly which corridor to take during the emergency. None of it was coincidence. "Station is secure," Wong announced, ending her call. "The terrorists have been captured. We can return to our quarters, but all negotiations are postponed until tomorrow." Serial made her decision quickly. "Captain Chen, a moment please." Marcus stopped, turning back to face her. The others filed out, leaving them alone except for Serial's personal guard standing at a respectful distance by the exit. "Yes, Princess Commander?" Marcus asked, his face neutral. "Your response during the emergency was impressive," Serial said, stepping closer to him. "You moved through this station like you had memorized every passage. Most tactical advisors study maps. You know this place differently." "I believe in thorough preparation," Marcus replied calmly. "And the medallion you wear. It has an unusual design. Where did you get it?" Marcus's hand moved unconsciously to his chest, where the medallion hung beneath his uniform. "It was a gift from a long time ago." "From whom?" "I'm not certain that's relevant to our current negotiations, Princess Commander." Serial felt frustration building inside her. He was hiding something, and she needed to know what. 20 years ago, she said slowly, watching his face carefully. "I was traveling with my family's diplomatic convoy through the Rim territories. Our ship was attacked by pirates. I was 7 years old." Marcus's expression did not change, but his jaw tightened slightly. The ship was destroyed. Serial continued. We crashed on a moon called Kethros. My guards were killed. I was alone, hunted by slavers who wanted to sell an imperial princess to the highest bidder. I've read reports of that incident, Marcus said quietly. It was a terrible tragedy. Yes, but here is the interesting part, Captain. My family searched for 3 days before declaring me dead. The Galactic Council said rescue was impossible. Kethros was too dangerous, too deep in pirate territory. No one would risk a war to save one child. Marcus stood very still, listening. But someone did come, Serial said, her voice softer now. Someone found me, kept me alive for 3 days, protected me from the slavers, got me to safety. You were very fortunate, Marcus said. I was, but the trauma caused memory problems. I remember fragments only, a voice telling me stories. Hands wrapping a blanket around me. Someone teaching me a song in a language I didn't understand, and I remember giving that person a medallion I had made myself, as a thank you. Marcus looked directly at her now, and she saw the truth in his eyes even before he spoke. Sometimes old military operations are classified for good reasons, Princess Commander. So you admit it? I'm simply saying that 20 years ago, many things happened that governments prefer to keep quiet. Before Serial could respond, her communicator buzzed. It was her aide, Kelvin. Commander, you need to see this. Sending encrypted file now. Serial opened the file on her tablet. It was a military report, heavily redacted, dated 20 years ago. The heading read, Operation Lost Sparrow, Unauthorized Rescue Mission, Classified. Most of the text was blacked out, but a few sections remained visible. Single operative, human, violated direct orders, entered hostile territory, without authorization, successfully extracted target, identity classified, and at the bottom, a name that had not been fully redacted. LT Marcus Chen. Serial looked up from the tablet. Marcus stood with his arms crossed, waiting. You were ordered not to save me, she said. I was ordered not to enter that sector. We had intelligence operations there. My presence could have exposed them, but you came anyway. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I was monitoring communications, and I picked up a distress beacon. It was weak, barely functioning. Everyone else had written it off as interference, but I ran the signal through different filters and realized it was a child's voice, Atheron language, calling for her mother. Serial felt tears threatening but forced them back. She was a commander now, not that frightened child. Why didn't you ever tell me? She asked. Why hide? Because revealing the truth would have caused a political disaster, Marcus explained. Humans weren't supposed to have intelligence operations in the Rim territories. We weren't supposed to have the technology to track signals that deep. If the truth came out, it could have destroyed relations between our species. Thousands of lives depended on those relations. So, you stayed silent. I did my job, Princess Commander. I got you home. That was enough. Serial walked to the window, looking out at the stars. After I was rescued, I changed. My parents wanted me to become a diplomat, a peacemaker, but I refused. I joined the military academy. I trained as a warrior. Do you know why? Marcus shook his head. Because of you. Because I remembered courage, even when I couldn't remember your face. Someone had shown me that one person could make a difference against impossible odds, that sometimes you have to break the rules to do what's right. She turned back to him. You changed my entire life, Captain Chen, and then you disappeared like a ghost. I'm sorry, Marcus said, and she could hear genuine regret in his voice. I thought it was better that way. Well, now I know the truth. And I? Her communicator buzzed again. This time, it was an emergency alert. Commander! Kelvin's voice was urgent. We have a problem. The terrorists we captured? They're not random attackers. They're from the Blood Star Syndicate. Serial's blood went cold. The Blood Star Syndicate, the same pirate organization that had attacked her convoy 20 years ago. There's more, Kelvin continued. We intercepted their communications. They know about your connection to Captain Chen. Commander, they're not here by accident. This was planned. Marcus stepped forward, his tactical mind already working. They want revenge for what happened on Kethros. Apparently you humiliated them 20 years ago, Kelvin said through the communicator. Made them look weak. They've been hunting for information about that rescue ever since. And now they know you're both here together. Cyril looked at Marcus. This is my fault. I shouldn't have confronted you. Someone must have been listening. It doesn't matter whose fault it is, Marcus said firmly. What matters is what we do next. The lights in the corridor outside suddenly went dark. Then they heard it. The sound of weapons fire getting closer. They're coming for us, Cyril said, drawing her energy pistol. Marcus pulled out his own weapon, moving to the door. Just like old times then. Except this time, Cyril said, standing beside him. I can fight back. Through the door's small window, they saw shadows moving in the darkness. The Bloodstar Syndicate had come to finish what they started 20 years ago, and this time they had come prepared for both a princess and the human who had defied them. The door's lock began to spark as someone tried to cut through it from the outside. Marcus and Cyril stood ready, weapons raised, two warriors bound by a past neither could escape. The hunt had begun again. The door exploded inward with a burst of sparks and smoke. Cyril fired her weapon immediately, hitting the first attacker square in the chest. The figure fell backward into the darkness. Move! Marcus shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward the back exit. They ran through the maintenance corridor, their footsteps echoing on the metal floor. Behind them, angry voices shouted in multiple languages. Energy blasts scorched the walls around them. How many? Cyril asked, running beside Marcus. At least 8, maybe more. Marcus turned a corner sharply, his weapon ready. They've planned this carefully. They reached an intersection. Marcus stopped, looking both ways, calculating. Cyril recognized that look. He was thinking several steps ahead, just like he had taught her indirectly all those years ago. Left corridor leads to the main hangars, he said quickly. They'll expect us to go there. Right corridor goes to the observation deck. It's a dead end, Cyril said, understanding his logic. Exactly. They ran right, and Marcus sealed the door behind them, using his security override code. It would not hold for long, but it bought them precious minutes. The observation deck was empty, a large circular room with windows showing the stars beyond. Marcus moved to a control panel and began typing rapidly. What are you doing? Cyril asked, keeping her weapon pointed at the door. Calling for help, but it will take time for security to reach us. He finished typing and looked at her. We need to talk while we can. They're trying to kill us. Especially now, Marcus said firmly, because if we don't survive this, you deserve to know the whole truth. Cyril lowered her weapon slightly, looking at him. Then tell me. All of it. Marcus took a deep breath. 20 years ago, I was a young lieutenant stationed on a deep space listening post. My job was to monitor communications in the Rim territories. It was boring work, mostly static and commercial traffic. He paused, remembering. Then, one night, I picked up that distress beacon. Everyone else ignored it. My commanding officer said it was just interference. But I couldn't let it go. I kept listening, and I heard your voice. You were calling for your mother in Aethron. You were crying. Cyril felt her chest tighten at the memory she could not fully recall. I checked the coordinates, Marcus continued. Kethros Moon. Deep in Bloodstar territory. My orders were clear. Do not engage. Do not reveal our presence. But all I could think about was a child alone on that moon, terrified, waiting for help that wasn't coming. So you disobeyed orders, Cyril said softly. I took a small shuttle without permission, told no one where I was going. It took me 18 hours to reach Kethros. When I found you, you were hiding in a crashed escape pod. You had a broken arm. You were dehydrated. And there were slaver scouts searching the area, getting closer. Behind them, the sealed door began to shake as the attackers tried to break through. Marcus continued talking, his voice steady despite the danger. I couldn't move you immediately. Your arm needed splinting, and you were too weak to travel. So I stayed with you in that pod for 3 days. I kept you warm, gave you my water and rations, told you stories about Earth to keep you calm. I remember the stories, Cyril whispered, about oceans and mountains, about a place called Colorado.
Yes, and I taught you a song.
You are my sunshine. You couldn't pronounce all the words, but you tried. Serial suddenly remembered. The melody came back to her, fuzzy but real. A human song about love and hope, sung by a stranger who had become her protector. The slavers came close several times, Marcus said. I had to keep you completely silent. You were so brave, Serial. Just 7 years old, injured and scared, but you trusted me completely. Because you promised, Serial said, the memory becoming clearer now. You promised I would see my family again. I did, and on the 3rd day, I got you to an Aetheran outpost at the edge of the sector. I watched from a distance to make sure you were safe. Then I left, returned to my post like nothing had happened. But something did happen, Serial said. You were punished. Marcus nodded. My superiors knew I had taken the shuttle without permission. They couldn't prove where I went, but they suspected. I was demoted, reassigned, and the entire incident was classified. The official story became that you wandered to the outpost on your own. A miracle survival. And you never corrected them. Because the alternative was worse. If the truth came out, it would expose human intelligence operations. It could have started a war. So I stayed quiet, and the secret stayed buried. The dog began to crack. The attackers were almost through. But the Bloodstar Syndicate found out somehow, Serial said, raising her weapon again. They must have. Pirates talk. Rumors spread. And now they want revenge for the humiliation. They lost a valuable prize 20 years ago because of one human who refused to follow orders. Serial stood beside Marcus, both of them facing the breaking door. I became a soldier because of you. Everything I am, I owe to that moment. You became a soldier because of your own strength. Marcus corrected her. I just helped you survive long enough to discover it. The door exploded open. 8 heavily armed figures rushed in, wearing the red and black armor of the Bloodstar Syndicate. Their leader, a tall alien with scarred green skin, pointed his weapon at them. The lost princess and her human protector. The leader said in rough galactic common, 20 years we have waited for this moment. You should have waited longer, Serial said coldly. Brave words, but you are trapped. No escape this time. Marcus stepped forward slightly, putting himself partially in front of Serial. Even now, even after all these years, his instinct was to protect her. You made a mistake, Marcus said calmly to the leader. What mistake? 20 years ago, you were hunting a scared child. Now you're facing a trained warrior. And you've given us exactly what we need. The leader laughed. What could we have given you? Time, Serial said. At that moment, the observation deck windows exploded inward as armored security forces crashed through on jetpacks. The station's elite response team had arrived, called by Marcus's earlier message. Chaos erupted. Energy blasts filled the air. The syndicate members tried to fight back, but they were surrounded and outnumbered. Marcus grabbed Serial and pulled her behind a support column as weapons fire blazed around them. They stayed low, letting the professionals handle the situation. Within minutes, it was over. The syndicate members were either unconscious or surrendering. The leader lay on the ground, disarmed and defeated. Station Commander Vex, a 4-armed Crolian, approached Serial and Marcus. Princess Commander, Captain Chen. Are you injured? We're fine, Serial said, standing up and brushing debris from her uniform. Thank you for the timely rescue. Vex looked between them curiously. Captain Chen's message said this was personal. Care to explain? Serial and Marcus exchanged glances. The secret they had kept for 20 years was about to become public knowledge. It's a long story, Commander, Marcus said. Then you'll have plenty of time to tell it, Vex replied. The Galactic Council is demanding a full report. Whatever happened here involves a princess and a terrorist organization. This becomes official business now. As security forces led the prisoners away, Serial stood beside Marcus, looking out at the stars through the broken windows. No more secrets, she said quietly. No more secrets. Marcus agreed. The past had finally caught up with both of them. And now, the entire galaxy would know the truth about the human who had saved a princess and changed the course of history. But as Serial looked at Marcus's calm face, she realized something important. The truth was not something to fear. It was something to embrace. because their story was not about hiding anymore. It was about what came next. The Galactic Council chamber was filled with representatives from 30 different species. Siriel stood at the central podium, Marcus beside her, as they prepared to give their testimony. Ambassador Wong sat in the human delegation section, looking worried. This was not how the trade negotiations were supposed to go. Chairman Vorak, an elderly Xanthari with silver scales, activated the recording systems. Princess Commander Siriel, Captain Chen, you will now explain the events that led to yesterday's attack. Siriel began speaking, her voice clear and strong. She told them everything. The attack 20 years ago. The crashed ship. The young human lieutenant who disobeyed orders to save her. The 3 days on Kethros Moon. The classified rescue that both governments had hidden. The chamber erupted in whispers and shocked conversations. Species that had been enemies of humanity looked angry. Others seemed impressed. This is quite a revelation, Chairman Vorak said when Siriel finished. Captain Chen, do you confirm this account? Marcus stepped forward. I do, Chairman. I violated orders to rescue Princess Commander Siriel when she was a child. I accept full responsibility for my actions. And you kept this secret for 20 years. I did. To protect both our governments from political complications. One of the council members, a Thaxian ambassador, stood up angrily. This proves that humans were conducting illegal intelligence operations in the Rim territories. This is a violation of the Outer Space Treaty. This proves, Siriel interrupted sharply, that one human cared more about saving a life than following rules. While my own people had given up searching, while the mighty Galactic Council declared rescue impossible, one human with a small shuttle succeeded. The chamber fell silent. The Bloodstar Syndicate attacked us because they wanted revenge, Siriel continued. They wanted to erase the shame of being defeated by a single human. Instead, they proved why humanity deserves respect. Captain Chen did not run yesterday. He did not abandon me to save himself. Just like 20 years ago, he stood and fought. The Council will review these matters. The Council will review these matters. For now, we have a more immediate problem. We have captured 8 Syndicate members, but our intelligence suggests their main force is still out there. They may attempt another attack. Let them come, Siriel said firmly. This time, we'll be ready. The council session ended with no clear resolution. Siriel and Marcus walked out together, ignoring the stares and whispered conversations around them. That went well, Marcus said dryly. Could have been worse, Siriel replied. They could have arrested you. The day's not over yet. They returned to Siriel's quarters, where her military staff was waiting. Kelvin, her aide, was reviewing security reports with concern on his face. Commander, we have a problem, Kelvin said immediately. The Syndicate members we captured aren't talking, but our sensors detected a large ship entering the system 3 hours ago. It's staying just outside scanner range, but the energy signature matches Bloodstar designs. Marcus moved to the tactical display, studying the data. How large? Cruiser class. Heavily armed. Estimated crew of 200. Siriel felt her stomach drop. They're planning something big. We need to evacuate the station, one of her officers suggested. No, Marcus said quietly, still studying the display. That's what they want. They want chaos, confusion. They want Siriel exposed during an evacuation. Then what do you suggest, Captain? Kelvin asked. Marcus was silent for a moment, his mind working through possibilities. Siriel watched him, recognizing that focused expression. He was thinking like he had on Kethros, finding the solution everyone else had missed. We use their own strategy against them, Marcus said finally. They think they know us. They've studied the reports from 20 years ago. They expect Siriel to run, and they expect me to protect her defensively.
And we won't do that? Siriel asked.
No, we'll do the opposite. Marcus turned to face her. 20 years ago, I went into their territory to rescue you. This time, you and I go to their ship. The room erupted in objections. Absolutely not, Kelvin said. Commander, you cannot risk yourself like this. It's suicide, another officer added. But Siriel was looking at Marcus, understanding his logic. They won't expect an attack. They think we're trapped here, waiting. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. They have superior numbers and firepower, but they're predictable. They're so focused on revenge that they've forgotten basic tactical thinking. Ambassador Wang, who had entered the room during the discussion, spoke up. Even if this crazy plan works, you'll need help. You can't assault a cruiser with just 2 people. We don't need to assault it, Marcus explained. We need to infiltrate it, get to their command center, force them to surrender or disable their weapons. That's still impossible, Kelvin protested. Sheriel smiled slightly. Impossible is what humans specialize in, apparently. She turned to her staff. Prepare a stealth shuttle. Small, fast, with the best cloaking technology we have. Captain Chen and I will handle this personally. Commander, please reconsider. That's an order, Kelvin. The aide bowed reluctantly. Yes, Commander. 3 hours later, Siriel and Marcus sat in a small 2-person shuttle, running final system checks. They wore light combat armor and carried minimal weapons. Stealth was more important than firepower. Ready? Marcus asked. Ready, Siriel confirmed. The shuttle launched silently from the station's lower bay. Its cloaking systems engaged immediately. On the view screen, they could see the massive Bloodstar cruiser in the distance, hanging in space like a waiting predator. Bringing us in slowly, Marcus said, piloting carefully. Their sensors shouldn't detect us if we approach from the debris field angle. Tell me honestly, Marcus, what are our chances? Honestly, about 30%. Those are terrible odds. They're better than the odds I had 20 years ago on Kethros, and we succeeded then. This opened annoying after night in time. When I was a child, hiding in that escape pod, I was so afraid. I thought I was going to die alone, but you didn't. No, because you refused to accept the impossible. You taught me that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being terrified and doing what needs to be done anyway. Marcus glanced at her. You learned that lesson well. You became everything I hoped you would be. Because I had a good teacher. They approached the cruiser's hull, finding a maintenance airlock, just as Marcus had predicted. Every large ship had blind spots in its sensor coverage. They just had to know where to look. The shuttle docked silently. Marcus and Siriel put on their helmets and checked their weapons one final time. Once we're inside, we follow the plan, Marcus said. Stay quiet, stay invisible. We find the bridge and take control. And if we get caught, then we improvise. Another thing humans are good at. They opened the airlock and entered the enemy ship. The corridors were dark and empty. Most of the crew would be at their stations, preparing for the attack on the station. Marcus led the way, moving like a shadow through the passages. Siriel followed, matching his careful steps. They passed storage rooms, crew quarters, engineering sections. Once they had to hide as a patrol walked by. Siriel held her breath, pressed against the wall beside Marcus, so close she could hear his steady heartbeat. The patrol passed without noticing them. They continued onward, going deeper into the ship. Finally, they reached the main bridge level. Through a small window, they could see the command center. 20 crew members worked at various stations, and in the command chair sat a familiar figure, the syndicate leader from the station attack. He had escaped somehow. There, Marcus whispered, pointing to a ventilation shaft. We go through there. Drop down behind the command station. Take him hostage before anyone can react. Just like we planned. Siriel confirmed. They crawled through the shaft, moving silently above the bridge. Below them, they could hear the syndicate leader giving orders. Prepare all weapons. We attack the station in 10 minutes. I want the princess brought to me alive. The human dies. Siriel and Marcus exchanged glances in the darkness of the shaft. Not if they had anything to say about it. Marcus counted down silently with his fingers. Where? Pray. 2. 1. They dropped through the opening together, landing perfectly behind the command chair. Siriel had her weapon at the leader's head before anyone could move. Nobody move, she commanded, her voice carrying across the bridge. Or your captain dies. 20 weapons immediately pointed at them. The leader laughed, seemingly unconcerned. Foolish princess, you cannot win. Maybe not, Marcus said calmly, holding up a small device. But I can trigger your reactor overload. This ship explodes in 3 minutes unless you surrender. The device was just a communicator, but the syndicate crew didn't know that. The leader's smile faded. You're bluffing. Try me, Marcus said. I broke every rule to save her before. You think I won't destroy this ship to protect her now? The bridge fell into tense silence. History was repeating itself, but with one crucial difference. This time, the princess was not helpless. This time, they fought together, and this time, the impossible was about to become possible once again. The bridge of the Blood Star cruiser was frozen in a moment of tense standoff. 20 weapons pointed at Serial and Marcus. Serial's weapon pressed against the syndicate leader's head. Marcus held up the device, his finger hovering over what everyone believed was a destruct button. You have 10 seconds to decide, Marcus said calmly. Surrender, or everyone dies. The syndicate leader's eyes darted around the bridge, calculating his options. He was a pirate, a survivor who had escaped death many times before. But something in Marcus's eyes told him this human was not bluffing. Wait, the leader said finally. Let's negotiate. No negotiation, Serial said firmly. Drop your weapons. All of you. Now, the crew members hesitated, looking to their leader for guidance. Do it, the leader commanded through gritted teeth. One by one, weapons clattered to the floor. Serial kept her pistol steady, her training keeping her hand from shaking despite her racing heart. Marcus moved quickly, pulling the leader from his chair and binding his hands with magnetic restraints. Face down on the floor. Everyone, hands behind your heads. The crew complied, lying down across the bridge. Marcus gestured to Serial, who moved to the communications console while keeping watch over the prisoners. This is Princess Commander Serial to Galactic Command Station, she broadcast. We have successfully taken control of the Blood Star cruiser, requesting immediate military support to secure the vessel. Static crackled. Then Commander Vex's surprised voice came through. Princess Commander? How did you... Never mind. Support ships are launching now. Maintain position. Zariel allowed herself a small smile. Acknowledged. The syndicate leader laughed bitterly from the floor. You think this changes anything? The Blood Star Syndicate has dozens of ships, hundreds of members. You've won one battle, not the war. Marcus knelt beside him. You're wrong. This war ended 20 years ago when you failed to capture a 7-year-old child. You just didn't know it yet. One human got lucky once, the leader spat. That's all. That's where you're mistaken, Serial said, walking over to stand beside Marcus. It wasn't luck. It was determination. It was refusing to accept that some things are impossible. And that's not just one human's trait. That's what all humans do. She looked at Marcus. 20 years ago, I was helpless. I needed saving. But he didn't just save my life. He showed me what true courage looks like. He taught me that one person making the right choice can change everything. Marcus met her eyes, and she saw pride there. And now, Serial continued, turning back to the syndicate leader, I'm not a frightened child anymore. I'm a commander, a warrior, because of what he taught me. The bridge doors opened as Galactic Command security forces stormed in, led by Commander Vex himself. They quickly took custody of the syndicate crew, securing them in restraints. Vex approached Serial and Marcus, his 4 arms crossed. That was extremely reckless, Princess Commander. But effective, Serial replied. I cannot argue with results, Vex admitted. The Council will want a full report. They'll get one, Marcus said. As the security teams worked, Ambassador Wong entered the bridge, looking both relieved and exasperated. Captain Chen, when I assigned you to this mission, I expected you to advise on trade routes, not assault pirate cruisers. Sorry, Ambassador, Marcus said, though he didn't sound very sorry. Circumstances changed. Somehow, I think Earth Command will forgive you this time. 2 days later, the Galactic Council reconvened. This time, the chamber was filled not with suspicion, but with curiosity. News of the daring mission had spread across every news network in the galaxy. Chairman Vorak called the session to order. Princess Commander Serial, Captain Marcus Chen, please approach. They walked to the central podium together. Serial wore her formal military uniform, decorated with medals from 3 wars. Marcus wore his simple human diplomatic uniform, carrying no awards despite his achievements. The Council has reviewed your actions, Vorak said. Both from 20 years ago and from this week, we have reached several decisions. The chamber fell silent. First, regarding the unauthorized rescue operation on Kethros Moon. After careful consideration, we find that Captain Chen's actions, while technically illegal, prevented a greater tragedy. No formal charges will be filed. Relief flickered across Ambassador Wong's face. Second, Vorak continued, we recognize that this incident has revealed important truths about cooperation between species. The Council hereby commends both Princess Commander Siriel and Captain Chen for their bravery and dedication. Polite applause filled the chamber. Finally, Vorak said, we have a proposal. Princess Commander, you have requested that Captain Chen be assigned as your permanent military advisor. Given the current security situation and the obvious effectiveness of your partnership, the Council approves this request. Siriel felt her heart lift. She turned to Marcus. What do you say, Captain? Ready to make this official? Marcus smiled, a genuine warm smile that reached his eyes. I made you a promise 20 years ago. That promise doesn't have an expiration date. Then it's settled, Siriel said. The council session ended with formal agreements about increased security cooperation and new trade arrangements. But Siriel barely paid attention to the political details. Her mind was on the future. Later that evening, she and Marcus stood on the observation deck of the station, looking out at the stars. The same deck where they had fought the Syndicate just days before. Now it was peaceful, the broken windows repaired, the battle scars hidden. I've been thinking, Siriel said quietly, about what you said, that I became a soldier because of my own strength. You did, Marcus confirmed. Maybe. But I chose this path because of you, because you showed me that sometimes the right thing to do is the hardest thing to do. That following your heart matters more than following orders. I followed your career, you know. After Kethros, I read every report I could find. Watched you grow from that scared child into an amazing leader. I was proud, even though I couldn't tell you. You can tell me now, Siriel said. Every day if you want, because you're not leaving again. No, Marcus agreed. I'm not. Siriel reached into her pocket and pulled out the copper medallion, the one she had made as a child and given to her rescuer. Marcus had returned it to her after the council session. I want you to keep this, she said, holding it out to him. Not as payment. Not as a thank you, but as a reminder. A reminder of what? That we're connected, past and present. That what we did 20 years ago still matters. That what we'll do tomorrow matters even more. Marcus took the medallion, studying the clumsy design she had scratched into it so long ago. I'll treasure it, just like I treasured knowing you were out there, making the galaxy better. We'll make it better together now, Siriel said. They stood in comfortable silence watching ships pass by the station. Diplomatic vessels, cargo haulers, military patrols, each one carrying people with their own stories, their own struggles, their own impossible dreams. Can I ask you something? Siriel said finally. Anything? Why humans? What makes your species do these things? Risk everything for strangers? Refuse to give up when everyone else has? Marcus considered the question carefully. I think we're stubborn. We don't accept that things are impossible just because they're difficult. We look at the universe and see not what is, but what could be. And we refuse to stop trying until we make it happen. That sounds exhausting. It is, Marcus admitted with a laugh. But it's also exhilarating. Every impossible thing we accomplish proves that the next impossible thing might be possible too. Siriel smiled. Then I'm glad I have a human watching my back.
Always, Marcus promised. Ambassador Wong approached them, carrying a data tablet.
Sorry to interrupt, but we have new mission orders. There's a situation developing in the outer colonies. They're requesting a diplomatic team with military support. Dangerous? Siriel asked. Potentially. Siriel looked at Marcus. What do you think? Marcus grinned. I think impossible is what we do best. Then we accept, Siriel told Wong. The ambassador nodded and walked away, leaving them alone again. Here we go, Marcus said. Another adventure. Another chance to do the impossible, Siriel corrected. They turned away from the window, walking side by side toward whatever challenges waited ahead. A princess who had learned courage from a stranger, a human who had broken every rule to do what was right, two people bound by a promise made 20 years ago, and a friendship that would last the rest of their lives. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, But together, they could face anything. Because history had proven one undeniable truth. When a determined human and a courageous princess worked together, the impossible became merely difficult, and the difficult became inevitable. Their story had begun with a rescue. Now it would continue with a partnership that would change the galaxy. And somewhere in the universe, another child was waiting. Another impossible situation was developing. Another chance to prove that hope and courage could triumph over any darkness. Cyril and Marcus walked toward that future together, ready for whatever came next. Because some debts can never be fully repaid. They can only be honored every single day. The end.